안녕하세요, 여러분. 제 이름은 디바예요. Welcome back to my channel. If I seem like I'm in a really good mood today, it's because I'm so excited for today's lesson, which sounds a little nerdy, but we are finally getting into conjugation, which is the first step, other than learning Hangul, to get into making sentences. We are going to learn about what conjugation is, where it's used, why it's used, and a few other details that'll help you along the way. I do want to preface this video by saying that with conjugation, especially the way that I like to teach it, we're going to focus a lot on polite speech, and we're going to talk about what that means in the video, but we're going to focus on polite speech because as a beginner, that's the most essential way to speak to somebody. You never want to speak casually. You always want to try to be polite or formal where possible. Again, these are all things we'll cover in the video. I just want to preface that by saying always, always, always be polite. You should never assume that you can be casual. 여러분, 시작할까요? 그럼, let's get started. In this video, we're going to cover conjugation, what it is, how it works, and how Korean conjugation is different than most languages. This video, like the alphabet, is going to be in a few different parts. There's a lot to cover, so I'll break it up bit by bit. Today's lesson will just focus on the family. Family? Well, I like to break up conjugation into families. There's a lot of conjugation rules, and I find it easier to break them off into similar groups. First, what is conjugation? Conjugation is taking adjectives and verbs from their base form and turning them into what it's essentially active forms. This varies language to language, but what makes Korean different from most languages is the conjugation is not determined by the pronoun. To equate what that means in English, we have words like is, am, and are. You say I am, you are, he or she is, they are, depending on what pronoun you're using. This is not the same case in Korean. What determines the conjugation in Korean is two things: politeness levels and tenses. Korean as a language has three ways that you can speak to somebody. The top tier is called 존댓말, 존댓말, or polite speech. This has two possibilities that branch off from it: formal or polite. Formal speech should be used with elders, bosses, superiors, or higher ranking people like government officials, or anything in situations where formal is required, like speeches, etc. Polite speech is a step under that. You can use this with people that you're meeting for the first time. It should be used with people older than you, strangers, friends, and family that you may not be close to. Lastly, we have 반말, 반말, which means casual or informal speech. This is used with people younger than you or the same age, really close friends and family. 반말 should never be used with anyone unless they're younger than you or the same age. You've established a close relationship with that person, or they've given you permission to speak casually. Age doesn't always determine the politeness levels, though. Be wary of using casual speech as a beginner. A good example I have of this is pictured here. I have a Korean pen pal. We talk often through Kakao Talk. I'm older than her and she speaks politely to me. I also speak politely to her even though she's younger than me. Although at this point we've established that we're friends and we call each other older sister, 언니, and younger sister, 동생, we still speak politely to each other. If she wanted to speak to me casually, she could. As I'm not Korean, I don't expect her to hold me to the same standards, but she does, and that's okay. So what does all of this really mean? Well, to begin conjugating, you have to understand the three differences in politeness levels. The other factor that determines your conjugation is tense, whether you're speaking past, present, or future. However, this is way too much to cover with basic conjugation, so we'll be saving these for another time. As a beginner, I stress that the speech level you should use the most is polite speech. We'll be focusing on polite speech for these first few lessons, and then we'll move on to formal and casual in another video. Here are some basic vocabulary words for you. I will put the meaning as well as the romanization. Again, remember, going forward, we're not going to rely on romanization as much. 1. 가다, 가다. to go. 2. 사다, 사다, to buy. 3. 오다, 오다, to come. 4. 보다, 보다, to see, to look, or to watch. 5. 작다, 작다, to be small. Right off the bat, what is one thing that you notice about all of these words? What do they have in common? They all end in ta. This is very common to see. This is the unconjugated form of these words. I've chosen these words as they're all a part of the a family. To begin conjugating an adjective or a verb, av for short, you need to remove ta first and foremost. This is the golden rule of conjugating. Ta is dead to us and has no use. Goodbye, ta. Now we are left with what is called a verb stem. A verb stem refers to everything that comes before ta. Absolutely everything. Even in long words like 생각하다, everything that comes before ta will be our verb stem. Now, even though I'm calling it a verb stem, please be aware, even if it's an adjective, we can still refer to it as a verb stem. Or you can just call it a stem if it gets confusing. After we remove ta, what will our verb stems be for these words? Take a minute to answer that and come back for the answers. And here are your answers. The verb stems are 가, 사, 오, 보, 작, and 초. These are our verb stems. After we get our verb stems, we need to find the rule that best suits our word. Our first rule for the a family is 1. If your adjective or verb's final vowel is a and is not followed by a consonant in the next syllable, leave it as it is and add yo to the end. So if you take a look at the words, which numbers end in a and are not followed by a consonant? 1 and 2. In 3, our final vowel is o, same for 4. In 5 and 6, our final vowel is a, but it's followed by a consonant. Now that we know that 1 and 2 apply to this rule, let's finish them off. Since they end in a and aren't followed by a consonant, all we need to do is add yo. This then becomes 가요 and 사요. But wait, what is yo at the end? Yo doesn't have a translation, but it is a polite ending that gets added on to the end of adjectives and verbs whenever you're being polite. If you've ever heard 안녕하세요, 안녕하세요, which you probably heard at the beginning of my videos, the yo at the end is just expressing politeness. Whenever you're being polite, yo must get added to the end of the conjugation. Moving on to rule number 2. If your adjective or verb's final vowel is a or o and is followed by a consonant, add ayo to the end. Out of 3, 4, 5, and 6, which of these applies to this rule? That would be 5 and 6. Because these end in a consonant, we should add ayo to the end to conjugate them politely. These then become 작아요 and 좋아요. Lastly is rule number 3. If your adjective or verb's final vowel is o and is not followed by a consonant, you will need to combine it with ayo. Listen to my word choice there. So far, we've been adding things to the end, and now we're talking about combining. This rule might be a little confusing at first, but we'll take it step by step. I will do 오다 as an example. We've already removed 다. We're left with our verb stem, 오, which applies to this rule. It ends in O and is not followed by a consonant. Originally, this was oayo, oayo. But Koreans love to make things shorter. Do you remember what the compound sound O and A made? Wa. So instead of saying oayo, the sounds get mushed together to make wayo. So if you ever see a word with O as the final vowel and there's no consonant, it turns into the wa sound. I'm going to do 2 more practice words with you, and then I'd like you to try some out on your own. Let's take a look at the word 많다, to be a lot or many. The very first thing we should do is to remove ta, and we'll have our verb stem 만. What I like to do is then look for the final vowel in my word, which here is a. Then I ask, is it followed by a consonant? And it is. So let's take a look at our rules. This follows the second rule. After removing ta, because our word ends in a and is followed by consonants, we can add ayo to the end. This becomes 많아요, 많아요. Now let's look at 나가다, to go out or to leave. What should be the first thing we do? We should remove ta from our word as it's not needed. Then what do we look for? Our final vowel. And do you know what that vowel is? Ah. The very last vowel in the word is ah. Is it followed by a consonant? Nope. So out of the 3 rules on the screen, what rule does this apply to? The answer should be 1. The final vowel is ah, but there are no consonants after. So what would this become? 나가요, 나가요. I'm going to put a few words up on the screen. Take some time, pause the video, and I'll put up the answers and explain the steps. 1. 보다. 2. 넓다. 3. 앉다. 4. 나오다. 5. 살다. 6. 일어나다. Now I will reveal the answers and go over the steps. The very first thing you should have done to all of these was removed ta. 1. 보다, to see, to look, to watch. After removing ta, you will see that your final vowel is o, not followed by a consonant. This follows rule number 3. You will combine this with the a sound and add yo to the end to make 보아요, 보아요. 2. 놀다, to play or to hang out. After removing ta, your final vowel is o, followed by a consonant. This goes with rule number 2. After adding ayo to the end, this becomes 놀아요. Remember that a lier followed by a vowel has a rolling R sound. 놀아요. 3. 앉다, to sit. After removing ta, we have a final vowel a, which is followed by a consonant. This also goes with rule 2. After adding ayo to the end, it becomes 앉아요, 앉아요. Also, remember that with 4-character words, if they're followed by a vowel, then all 4 characters will get pronounced. 앉아요. 4. 나오다, to come out or to leave. After removing ta, we're left with 나오. This follows rule number 3. Since the vowel is o and there's no consonant afterwards, we combine it with the a sound to get 나와요, 나와요. Number 5. 살다, to live. When we removed ta, we had 살. A followed by a consonant is rule number 2. We can add ayo to the end and get 살아요, 살아요. Again, rolling that 리을 sound. 6. 일어나다. To wake up or to get up. When ta is removed, we have 일어나. It ends in a and there's no consonant following it. So this will follow rule number 1. Just add 요 to the end to get 일어나요. 일어나요. Awesome job. I know it's hard, but you're getting there. So what exactly did any of this do except make Korean that much more difficult? Well, it turned these adjectives and verbs into actual actions and descriptions. These can now be applied to sentences. Now you can say things like, I'm going to school, or I'm sitting in the chair. Can you say these things right now? Nope. But this is a stepping stone in the right direction, so please keep practicing. And for further assistance, if you would like to, there is a free PDF that you can click the link down in the description and it'll take you to a PDF with all of these rules as well as a few practice sheets. Happy learning!